Hey, Kathy Homeyer here again in my nutritional energetics play kitchen, my energy kitchen, my energy lab, I call it, and have our my Terra Resonator here. The name is Sparky. Say hello to Sparky. And I tonight when we were cooking dinner, actually my son was cooking, so I thought, well, I'll snatch some of his ingredients and light score it and then put it on the Terra Resonator. It was a great idea until he kept coming out and getting it back, but I did do the work. And I'll tell you what we came out with. He was making enchiladas, and we had some fresh colored peppers. So I'll tell you the scores afterwards. So I put those on the Terra Resonator. I scored it before and after in terms of light score and what I call elemental balance score. And then we have some canned corn, and I put that on the resonator as well. For about 30 seconds to a minute, and sometimes I leave it on there when I get sidetracked and do whatever, but it's really not that long at all. And some black beans. So I had taken those and put those on the Terra Resonator as well. And I also have a little bit of what he cooked up. So that has been cooked food. And this is one that we didn't end up eating. So there's a beautiful enchilada. He did a great job. They were fantastic. And some cheese. Actually, this cheese is fantastic. It is from a farm near here. The guy is actually Swiss, and they do make cheese. They have their own cows. And I have the label here. This cheese is actually called St. Regis. And if you can see kind of my cookbook there to the left, that's St. Regis Mountain. So he named his cheese out of some of the mountains and things in the area here. But it is awesome. It's from, these guys are just, how lucky can you get having Swiss people having cows in the Adirondacks making you cheese? I mean, it's just awesome. So that's the cheese on there. So I will tell you what some of the scores were. And then I actually had some of my almonds that in another video I had soaked and sprouted. And these I had put on the stove, kind of on the pilot, just drying out overnight. So I wanted to know the scores of those too. So with the, let's see, with the nuts that I had soaked and dried, their light score was an 80 after being dried. And actually, I'll leave those on there and we'll score those afterwards. The beans, the black beans, started out as a 19 from the can, because these are processed, these were canned beans. Terra Resonator got it up to an 80 light score, started out as 67 elemental balance score, up to a 79. The corn, which was a 57, actually higher than I expected for yellow corn, and I'll talk about that in a second. And the elemental balance score, although the elemental balance score was 15. Now, the white tortillas, which I didn't score a whole lot, were only 33, and I say only because they're commercialized, though. If you have a choice, just a tip here, if you have a choice in corn products where you are buying yellow versus white, especially if they're not organic, then buy the white. Yellow corn is typically GMO'd and fooled with much more than the white, so buy the white. Just a little tip there. Let's see, the peppers, the peppers, they were colored peppers. They started out at a 54 and ended up at an 83 for light score after being on the Terra Resonator. Elemental balance score went from a 45 to a 94. Interesting how they go sometimes. The cheese started out at a 77, a little bit higher, and I would expect that with that cheese. This one has been in the freezer, so it's not as fresh as when we bought it, so that would have been interesting as well. That went from a 77 to a 92. So you can easily improve the scores of food, obviously, that are higher versus the lower ones. And the balance score for the cheese was a 67, went up to an 85. And let's see what next here. So all of those went up. I actually tested the enchilada after we cooked it. Now we have a little bit of love in the kitchen, and we have a diagram actually that Peter Schenck had given me on a session a couple of years ago. I'm not even sure he even knows what it is or remembers, but I always put that in top of my my kitchen it's a large fan for my commercial kitchen, and I always put that diagram up there. But it's after cooking, it was a 68. And if you put it back on the Terra Resonator after you cook it, it went up to an 80. So like I said, you're going to shoot for at least the 70s for something really quality food that you want to eat. At least 70s. Obviously, the higher the better. But it actually went up after you cooked it, put it back on the resonator, and it actually brought it back a little bit more. So let's see what the dried nuts are. And they started out, like I said, in a previous one, I can't remember what we started them out as, but after they were soaked and sprouted, that whole idea that we went through, and then I dried them back out, they were about at 80. So pretty awesome for not being probably a super raw nut just purchased. So I'm happy with that. So let's see, back on the Terra Resonator. Is it going to go above 80 light score, over 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87? So it'll bring it about up to an 86 or 87. I'm not spending tons of time here to get the exact amount. I just want to see the variations. And it's really kind of interesting. I'll keep all this data and take a look at it in terms of cheeses versus like nuts and fruits, things that come out of cans versus grapes. I want to do a grape one for you, but I don't want to mix it into this, and I'll end this one now. So have fun playing with your Terra Resonator, and hope to see you in Nutritional Energetics or my cooking classes. Bye-bye.